So, if you look at a lot of people trying to predict the next election, it's very hard because we don't know what it's going to be like, in 2025 versus maybe, I don't know, maybe late 2028, maybe early 2029. That is a long time. A lot of things can change between now and then. For example, we may not be experiencing the problems that the Ukraine war has put on European economies. That may fundamentally change things for not only our economy, but for Europe in general. If that is, currently going on, regardless of however it turns out, if it is, well, not on, then, well, it's going to fundamentally change a lot of economies. So there is stuff like that going on. There's stuff like, trade, how that can happen, how, for example, these trade wars are going to sort of, play out. What decisions are a government going to make then? Is something else, going to come along? All sorts of stuff could happen between then and the next general election. And it is, as I've always said, up to how our government is going to handle those things. And I really do think we have a government that is going to fundamentally do a lot different things because they've already shown that they are prepared to do a lot different things than the Tories are, especially when it comes to what we've seen sort of with the economy, etc. People say, oh no, it's exactly the same. It's not, but there you go. But you are seeing that. But of course, you've got to remember that the Tories right now, the most in vogue argument amongst the Tories right now is that they were not conservative enough. And that's why they did not win the last general election. And oh, don't you worry, because next election, the British people will, the wool would have been lifted from their eyes and will come back, triumphantly and return and sort everything out. That is seriously what the Conservatives do think about the next general election. However, interestingly enough, we have now seen some movement of where Kemi Badenoch now thinks she will, shall we say, turn to on this. But however, some of this stuff probably isn't going to go in their favor, as we'll see in a moment. So before we do get on into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button down below. There are links to my Patreon page, the donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, as the Pony Club down below as well. So as always, yeah. Thank you very much for watching. And of course, thank you very much for all the help and support that you guys do give as well. So let's crack on then into this. So this comes from London Economic with the title of Kemi Badenoch's planning to turn rural voters against Keir Starmer. So Kemi Badenoch is now plotting a long-term plan to turn rural voters against Labour. The London Economic can exclusively reveal. So long-term plan means that farmers would have to forget every single thing that they have done to them in their 14 years of power. The ELM system, which was what a Tory plan was introduced, and we'll have to see what Labour, of course, does between now and then when it comes to sort of rural areas and sort of how they sort of are going to sort of stuff they're going to sort of do for them during that time. Brexit itself, these trade deals ultimately on this, all those big protests you had. You remember the phone call from LBC? Someone said, yeah, these weren't farmers. Yeah, they were, most of them were day traders who, got in their tweeds and whatnot and decided to, come on down. It's not farmers, it's the land managers, those who are, playing with those big farm estates. I don't think they're in the majority, especially, remember, where you have seen a lot of these rural areas not be turned off against, flip for Labour, but they flip for the Lib Dems. So once again, you are seeing the Conservatives flip or attack a party which they are just ignoring. And I keep on bringing this up so many times. Every single time you see a Tory strategy or anything like that, it seems to ignore the Lib Dems. And I just don't understand why. But there you go. So Badenoch now, whose popularity amongst Tory members has now halved in less than 2 months, oh boy, has it, is now working with CCHQ to develop a new strategy to bring back rural voters to the Conservative Party after figures accused Labour of now turning their back on the farmers. Okay, next general election. Hey, remember when the Tories were last in power and they did all this, this, and this? They're making all these promises that, remember, last time they did not keep. Why should farmers trust the Tories? You don't even have to be Labour to sell that message. Anyway, officials say that Kemi Badenoch has now told them that the Tories need to have a balanced approach between the negative and viral impact of their policies and the financial benefit. So that means you're going to turn off all those green Tories as well. So, and guess what? Green Tories are one that's most likely to live in these rural areas. So good luck at losing all those votes as well. The Tory leader has also now shared her politically motivated plans with some members now to improve public transportation and increase rural investment in communities to now win them back to her party in the next general election. She has also now continued to commit to reverse Labour's inheritance tax on farms. Again, will they actually go through with this? Because remember, they had 14 years in power and they constantly talked about things like this, and yet they did not do them. That will still apply as messaging at the next general election. So, is it going to work? Don't think so. Also, you've got to see what the Labour's inheritance tax actually does to prices of agricultural land and things like that as well. That will have an impact. So, we don't know if in a couple of years' time, you might get, farmers turn around and go, well, actually, that inheritance tax, wasn't a bigger issue because I went to my accountant and we did this, this, and this. Great, I don't have to pay inheritance tax anymore. With a pledge now to, of course, fix potholes and even specific focus on the countryside is also now being considered. So again, I still think that's not enough to win them these votes. Even if they just focus on these, the seats they would win, and if they still did win these, it's not fully 100% guaranteed on that, because who are they fighting here in these seats? It's not Labour, it'll be the Lib Dems. So former Tory MP Nicola Richards has now urged Badenoch to focus now on these rural seats after the election defeat, saying that it was always a concern since the 2019 election that the party has now lost focus on the more rural seats, which the Lib Dems and even Labour have now lapped up. It falls to Kemi to now work out what the Conservative Party actually stands for. I hope it will work out how to now appeal to a broader spectrum of voters. Again, broader spectrum of voters. She's right on that. But, we're going to focus on farms. Anyway, although the Conservatives do claim that the government's inheritance tax on farms now, quote, threatens Britain's food security and will lead to higher food prices, the Treasury predicts fewer than 500 farms a year will actually be affected. Many Labour figures have now defended their decision, pointing out that the standard rate for inheritance tax is, of course, 40%, which is now 20% higher than the rate than which will be put on farms from April 2026. Badenoch, of course, faced early backlash this month after telling shadow cabinet ministers not to expect any major policy announcements for the next 2 years. Oh boy, I keep on telling you, Kemi Badenoch not saying any big policy announcements or anything like that will cause people to come out and dictate their own policy. Also, what's Kemi Badenoch going to talk about for the next 2 years? If she hasn't got any major policies, what is she actually going to talk about for the next 2 years? What are other Conservatives going to talk about for the next 2 years? Eventually, I can guarantee you this now, someone's going to go rogue and say, this is what our policy should be. If Badenoch is going to make any policy, then I'm going to say what policy should be. And if she doesn't agree with it, well, at least we know that's not what she's going to promote, right? Someone will go rogue sooner or later in the Tory party. Instead, she has now promised to try and regain voters' trust and has apologized for her party's record in government. She didn't. It was absolutely abysmal when she did it. She said that the British public can now kick the Conservative out because we got things wrong. They were right. The last leader admitted last night. Well, she didn't blame, even point out to any specifics of the things that she got wrong. She said, we did not deliver on the things that we said we would do, and we let them down. And I hate letting people down. However, these new tactics haven't proved helpful for our approval rating amongst Tory members. A new poll by Conservative Home shows her rating has almost halved since December, from 70 plus down to 32 plus. And as I said just a couple of weeks ago when we covered that poll, that is not good. That is not good, because right now she's been beaten by Mel Stride. Mel Stride was the comedy candidate of the last Tory leadership election. Yet she's been beaten by Mel Stride, and she's even been beaten by a former leadership contender, Robert Jenrick. That is bad. That is very, very bad. If you are a leader and you have come into power right now, you really need to be telling what direction where your party is going. And again, she hasn't. She needs to come out with some policy to show, again, how different they are now, how they intend to get, people's trust back. Apologizing isn't good enough. But there you go. So we finish it off with this. A Tory source said that Kemi Badenoch is now determined to get the party back into government, and she has ideas that may resonate with the public, but she needs to let people know about them sooner rather than later. Again, ideas that may resonate with the public. What exactly are those? She's not going to say anything for 2 years. Good luck. Will she survive those 2 years? I doubt it. I've told you before, these next May local elections are going to be a massive low point for the Conservatives, because the last time they ran these local elections, the last time these were actually done, were like the last big win they had under Boris Johnson. Like, that was it. So these elections for them, these upcoming local elections, are going to be dire. Absolutely dire. Badenoch will be expected to respond to those. And she will just turn around and say, oh, it's just a blip. It's not. It's really not. And then, of course, next year, we have Senate and Holyrood elections. That will be big for her as well. And I think next year is going to be her make or break moment. She's either going to be gone or something else will have happened by that. Will she survive the year? That will be very difficult to tell, quite honestly. There's going to be a lot, as this year goes on, there is going to be a lot more pressure build against her. And eventually, it's how she deals with that pressure. And as we've seen from every single past Tory leader, they have dealt with that pressure so awfully. So we'll see what happens, but I don't think Kemi Badenoch is going to have a very particularly good year this year. And when you have halved your leadership numbers, that's not good. That is not good. So let me know what you think. Do you think this Kemi Badenoch now flipping to focus on rural voters is going to be good for her, or is it just going to end up in disaster? Is, once again, that stalking yellow tiger going to be having Kemi Badenoch and her plan for rural voters for breakfast? I very much think so. But as always, let me know what you think down in the comments. Hit the like, hit the share button on your way out. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.